All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and peace and mercy to the hopeful elect. I'm the brother Yawanathan, back with another quick lesson. Lord willing, it's edifying. And we just got some new updates about blackouts for the summer of 2023 across the United States. There's some articles from MSN, the Washington Post, News Castilian. There's a few articles if you go to Google and just put new blackout threats. Pretty much I'm going to read this article from EEnews.net. It says, Grid Monitor warns of blackout risk across U.S. So 2/3 of North America could face power shortages this summer during periods of extreme electricity demand and spiking temperatures. The nation's grid reliability monitor warned Wednesday. All right, so that's what they're talking about. They're saying 2/3, which we know that's a spiritual number in itself. A lot of times it's 2/3. I remember when I think it was a solar eclipse went over America a couple years back. It made like an X or whatever. It crossed right through America. I believe they said 2/3 of the United States was able to see that, the solar eclipse. We're always seeing that number 2/3 getting thrown around a lot when it comes to destruction and trouble. And we know that's spiritual because 2/3 of you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans who are the biblical Hebrew Israelites, you're going to suffer during these times to come. You know, all these videos and warnings that we put out through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai, because they're prophecies, all right, in the Bible. This is prophecy. A blackout is going to happen, whether it be through so-called cyber attack, EMP attack, or, you know, like what they're warning with this, the demand in electricity, you know, periods of extreme electricity demand and spiking temperatures, something like that. However it happens, you know, it's going to happen. And we know that the elites of this society, the so-called higher-ups, you know, the ones that are the shadow government, so to speak, they have plans to use these certain crises if they're not already, you know, behind it. Because let's say a cyber attack, that's completely man-made. If a cyber attack attacks the power grid and shuts it down, that's 100%, you know, man did that. But let's say if it's because of the heat or whatever, they got rolling blackouts, things like that for safety. Either way, it's the will of the Most High, but that would be a more like natural way of it happening. But either way, the elites are going to capitalize on this crisis. You know, they have a quote, never let a good crisis go to waste. So when we see these lights go out here in America and potentially other parts of the world, in Europe, so on and so forth, we know that there's going to be new rules, so-called new regulations, new limitations for certain things, you know, that's going to be implemented by the so-called government, who is just puppets for the shadow government, for the, you know, the elites. And part of their agenda is to implement the digital economy, you know, so this could be a perfect segue for them to implement a digital society when restarting up the power grid or rebooting it or whatever, however they do it. You know what I'm saying? So we looking forward to this. This is prophecy. Let me get something real quick. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 30, verse 7. All right, and it reads, it says, Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And Jacob's trouble haven't happened yet. How do we know that? Because it's going to be a time that trumps every other time in history. Yahweh Shai said there's going to be tribulation such as there never was and nor shall ever be. So we know after this time of Jacob's trouble, this is the final trouble for our people. Jacob represents the Israelites. This is the final trouble that our people are going to have to go through. After this is going to be the kingdom of heaven. You know, that's why it mentions he shall be saved out of it. In Daniel, the 12th chapter, it speaks about Michael, the archangel, standing up during the same time, the time of Jacob's trouble. But also it mentions who's the he, but he shall be saved out of it. It mentions who those he specifically are. It's the elect of Israel, those that are found written in the book of life. All right, so the 1/3 of you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans will be delivered from this time, but 2/3 of you are gonna die during these times through famine, because blackout is definitely going to create famine. You know, that's a given. It's going to create food shortages because a lot of food right now is being preserved through electricity, through, you know, refrigeration, things like that. If there's a complete power grid outage or EMP attack, you know, even these trucks that transport meat and dairy and produce, they're not going to be able to operate. So you will not be able to get so-called fresh groceries. It's not even fresh anyways to begin with. I mean, we're eating poison out here. Let's be real. You know, we're eating nothing but poison and GMO, which is the same thing. You know, it is poison, but in that day, you know, you won't even have access to that. You won't be able to get you a dollar menu cheeseburger from McDonald's either. You're not gonna be able to get shit because this whole country, so to speak, is being operated through traffic, through electricity. All right, everything is electrical. Everything is ran by either gas or oil, or some form of gas or oil. You know, so once these systems collapse, society will collapse with it, and they know this. You know, these insiders, you know, these people that understand the power grid and how things function through our society. You know, they understand that this is a critical blow to society as we know it. And if and when, it's not even a matter of if, it's really a matter of when this finally does happen, everything is going to be crippled. You know, it's going to be strictly based on faith in Yahweh Bashim Yahushua at that point, because we won't be able to really do anything. You know, you may not be able to drive your car. You may not be able to really do anything. You know, you could imagine the amount of jobs that are going to be disabled, because you're not going to be able to, one, you won't be able to get to work. Two, even if you were to get to work, there's no work. There's no, the business won't be able to function without electricity 9 times out of 10. So this is a critical or crucial blow that's going to hit this place. And it's going to be one of the plagues, just as it were in ancient Egypt, because this is spiritual Egypt, America, Revelation 11:8. And when you read about what happened in Egypt in Wisdom of Solomon, the 16th and the 17th chapter, there in Apocrypha, it tells you how there was a darkness that even a flame, you know, couldn't even cure, so to speak. Meaning, even if you lit a fire, the darkness was so thick that all you could see is that immediate fire. You couldn't see anything around it. It wasn't giving light to anything. So, you know, we could somewhat prepare. It's smart to, you know, have a generator if you can, some flashlights, you know, batteries, learn how to make a fire. But if the Lord does that all over again, which he said he would, and even worse this time, I mean, that's not really going to help a lot of those things. The only thing that's going to help is this word, having this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and the names of Yahweh Shem Yahushai first and foremost. That's the only thing that can deliver you from a time like this that we're getting ready to enter into. This article reads that the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC, NERC, found that the number of regions with an elevated risk of power shortages have increased as temperatures rise and power plants retire. In a worst-case combination of severe heat and unexpected generation outages, the western United States, most of Texas, and the Californias face a heightened risk of rolling power blackouts, NERC said. The system is closer to the edge. More needs to be done, said John Mora, NERC Director of Reliability Assessment and Performance Analysis, in a news briefing Wednesday. Overall, the 2023 Summer Reliability Assessment concludes that grid networks should come through the summer safely given normal weather. But nothing is normal at this point, so we can't even rely on that. That's not really reliable. Well, it should be good if the weather is normal. You know, these people are messing with the weather. They have their HARP systems and programs, weather modification, weather manipulation. You know, you got the movie Geostorm that show you that. I mean, there's nothing normal about anything that's been going on this planet since the so-called white man been in rulership. So what the fuck does normal weather mean? You know, don't, you know, take what these devils say. I wouldn't even say take it with a grain of salt. Just whatever he's saying, just consider the opposite to be true. Because he's a fucking liar. He's a father of lies. The so-called white man. Yeah, you Edomites, you so-called white people. You're the devil. Diablos. And you say all type of shit that ain't true. You give all type of false promises all the time. It says, but a repeat of the 2020 heat dome, a midsummer siege of record heat across most of western United States could create grid emergency conditions from the Pacific Northwest and Sun Belt to Texas. Wildfires and extended periods of poor wind and solar output, coupled with extreme heat, could also become factors in grid stress, according to NERC, whose industry-staffed committees develop grid reliability standards for approval by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. NERC estimated a 1 in 10 chance of extreme conditions this summer based on past history and forecasts of demand. In that sense, we are not predicting these conditions to occur with certainty, but it is going to happen. Like I said earlier, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it may not be this summer. It may not be extreme heat that causes it again. It could be a variety of different things, such as EMP attacks, cyber attacks. But this devil, this is how he does with his self-fulfilled prophecy bullshit. You know, he'll tell you something possibly could happen, like they're prophets. Yeah, they just know this is going to happen, but they saying, well, we're not 100% sure, but they're the ones that are going to do it. So they are 100% sure, but they're not going to tell you that information, because they tell you just enough to where you should be aware of this, man. You people out there should be conscious of a potential blackout this summer, and you should be somewhat prepared for that to the best of your ability, you know, because he's telling you that it's going to happen, but then again, he's telling you, well, it's not certainly going to happen, but it's a high possibility that it's like, bro, just what are you going to deal with? We supposed to deal with probability of things, you know, as men, as, you know, using logic and reasoning. If there's a chance that it's going to rain today and the clouds are, you know, the sky is cloudy, you see the dark clouds, you're not going to go out and dress in something that you don't want to get soaked in. You're going to wear some clothes that you're expecting rain to come. And if it doesn't come, like Elder Apostle Ramlab said one time, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So why is people just not getting prepared? Because you people are asleep and you're nothing but sheeple and you're being led to the slaughter. And the so-called white man has you in a trick bag. And really it's the will of Yahweh Shemel Shai to be so. Because if everyone was aware of this, everyone would be getting ready. There will be less casualties of these future black swan type events. But we know that a lot of you people are going to die because you're simple. Let me look that up real quick. Prudent man. I know it's in Proverbs. Proverbs 22:3. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. See, so you simple people, which simple goes back to being open-minded, being weak-minded, being filled with folly. You know, nothing but folly consumes your mind. You're not really concerned about realistic, real-life events and particular prophecy of the Bible. You're not even concerned with that. So you're going to pass on and move along as if nothing is happening or nothing will happen. And you're going to get caught right up in it, unawares. You know, like the scriptures say, that's why you got to seek the Lord now while he may be found, Isaiah 55:6. And how do you seek the Lord? Through the prophets, the men of the Lord who are teaching you, who are telling you about these prophecies and warning the house of Israel as we were commanded to do. That's our job. I mean, it's fucking simple, man. But hey, like it just said, the simple-minded are going to pass on and be punished. That's 2/3. It says the report comes amid a fierce debate over how the country might meet EPA's proposed rules last week to reduce carbon dioxide emission from power plants. So it's just a perfect disaster, perfect storm that's brewing up, you know, because they're telling them to do certain things to reduce the carbon dioxide output of these electrical power grids. But if they do that, and then you have a demand in electricity, people using their AC on higher, whatever it may be. You got all these electronics around us. People got multiple TVs, you know, microwaves, everything. And this is all using electricity. It's going to pull on the power plant. And then if they're not, how do you call it? If they're not operating on the same level of, I just had a word that I wanted to use, but it ain't no fancy word or nothing. It's just I forgot what it's called, but like, businesses operate on certain levels. So sometimes you got more staff, more work needs to be done. Sometimes it's less. So if you getting more people pulling on the demand from the power plant, and the power plant is producing less electricity, that's going to automatically default to to basically a outage. Either it be a rolling blackout where they going to manually turn off the power grid, or just it's too much for the transformers and all of that and the generators, and it just turns off. Just like in your house, sometimes if you run too much at the same time, the breaker will hit to save your power line, because if not, your power line would just fry. So the breaker, it basically goes into effect to turn off everything in your home, so it could save your power supply. Well, that's what these bigger transformers and these power plants have a similar system, and so that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes you get a flickering, your lights just turn off, and they turn back on real quick. Sometimes it'll go off for 10, 20 minutes. Sometimes it'll be hours. Well, this event, it's going to be a indefinite time. We don't even know how long this is going to be for, how long they want to turn this thing off. They could do it for a week, a month. We don't know. The longer it stays off, the more damage it's going to do to society. So knowing these devils, they're going to leave it off for a while. And a lot of people are going to starve and die through this event. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to just get one more last precept, and I'm going to close it out. This is the book of Zephaniah, chapter 1, verse 14. The great day of the Lord is near. It is near, and hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord, the mighty man shall cry there bitterly. So the voice of the day of the Lord is the prophets telling you that the day of the Lord is near. It says the great day of the Lord is near. It is near, and hasteth greatly. So this thing is coming quick, man. They're making these moves fast. And this is what the day of the Lord is. Jacob's trouble, the nuclear destruction that comes after Jacob's trouble, and everything that comes with it in between. Famine, wars, earthquakes, so-called unnatural disasters, should I say, not natural, but unnatural disasters. All of this is considered the day of the Lord. But it is going to be one particular day that Yahushua does appear. When the missiles actually launch, don't get it wrong. That's truly the day of the Lord. But all these events that are simultaneous, they're simultaneously going to happen, is going to lead to the day of the Lord. You see what I mean? So it says that day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet and alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. And I will bring distress upon men, that they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord, and their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as the dung. So this is why in the book of Ezekiel, the 2nd chapter, at the end, Ezekiel said that what was written within and without of the book was lamentation, mourning, and woe. Jeremiah 28:8. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old have prophesied against many countries, against great kingdoms of war, evil, pestilence, famine, etc. Roughly paraphrasing. So this is what the day of the Lord, this is what's going to happen to America. This is what the Bible is prophesying about Jacob's trouble and so on and so forth. The Lord's telling you that it's nothing but destruction and wasteness that's coming to this place, man. And the missiles is going to be the final KO that's going to completely demolish America. All right, Babylon the Great and all the inhabitants outside of the elect that's going to get beamed up out of this place. That's how it's going to go down. All right, so-called UFOs or chariots of the Lord are going to deliver the 1/3 of Israel out of this destruction. But even leading up to that, like I said before, you're going to have a period of, you're going to have a sequence of unfortunate events. You already see it happening with these train derailments. I mean, it's just going left. Everything's going left in this place. So it's just going to get much more worse and deadlier in the days to come, until Yahushua comes, until the missiles launch, and then Yahushua comes. All right, so yeah, you got to understand prophecy, man. You got to understand what time you're living in, so you could be prepared to the best of your ability. But ultimately, there's no physical preparation we could do for a day like this, because it's never been seen. So we just have to prepare in the spirit store up spiritual treasures, get this truth, this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Don't forsake the name of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai. I can't stress that enough. And yeah, Lord willing, we make it. That's all we could really say. We're going to keep doing the work, Lord willing. Abaratazah, we're going to endure. But ultimately, it's up to the Lord. His mercies and His grace and His election. We just hope that we are part of it. So with that, I'm going to say, Call Allah Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And Lord willing, I'll see you in the next lesson. Shalom.